Hey, CFC friends and family, it is Wednesday afternoon, and I'm here with Pastor Brian.
Hey, man. Good to see you again.
Yeah, this is 2 weeks in a row. We missed a few weeks.
I know, in person too, no less. Yeah,
I know.
strange.
We've got the
Larry King mic.
Mic is
again,
back.
old folks reference for us.
Yes. They will get that reference. Some people may not get that reference. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit because it's a little bit hot. So hopefully we didn't knock anybody off a treadmill or anything.
Well, there you go.
That would be kind of awkward. So. We are wrapping up the 24/7 Jesus series on Sunday.
Yeah, we did actually.
We did, yes. Yeah, we did. And so we talked about abiding on Sunday. But as we jumped into that, we talked about this. You kind of led in by talking about this culmination point. So as you talked about approaching that culmination point in your life, the one with the 5 at the beginning and the 0 at the end.
Now, I want to stop you right there. Never in my talk did I mention the actual year.
All right, my bad.
Not that it wouldn't be obvious due to my looks and our reference to Larry King that it would have been a 50, but never did I actually mention the year. So thanks for outing that in case it wasn't obvious.
We could cut that out of the edit on the backside. So how are you? What's the craziest part of that culmination point for you?
I think there's things when I was younger, and I think anyone who's listening to this right now who happens to be past 50, you'll probably laugh at it. But I think there's just parts in life where you just begin to, preconceive what life is going to look like at certain times. And so there was clearly a conception of that. There was like, this isn't what I thought it would be like, number one. And the other one is not to sound in any way, shape, or form overtly morbid, but my good friend Mike Mentor, who's actually going to be speaking for us here this summer and some of my times away, I remember he mentioned to me one time, he said, there's something profoundly impacting when you realize without a doubt that there's more sand in the bottom of your hourglass than there is in the top, right? And now, none of us actually know how many years we get here on this life, but I do know that there's probably about a 99% chance that I'm at my half-life or past, right? Just based upon everything.
Yeah, just doing the math.
And so I think looking at that without, again, not trying to be, overtly morbid, but I want to say this, that is, again, to remind me that life is a vapor. This life is a vapor. And that what we do here matters.
Yeah.
And so it's made me, again, go back and look like, all right, am I making the most of the life that Jesus has given me? Am I living this life to the full? Yeah. Going back to this series, am I living from the 24/7 Jesus? Because eventually our opportunities this side of eternity, they do wear out. Yeah. None of us are going to be 969 like Methuselah. So,
and I don't know that I would want to make it there.
Yeah, I do want to know what Methuselah was like at 969. There's probably a lot of discussions we could have around that.
What did that feel like to be looking back on 900 years?
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes, and I'm not to that point yet, but I'm closer than I wish that I were. But as you look back over the time, it doesn't feel like that long ago.
No,
but I think looking forward, you always feel like it's so far away.
Yeah.
It's so far in the future. And then...
Yeah, this is completely not attached to the conversation. Do you wonder if 500 for Methuselah is 50 for us? I mean, did he think that way? I don't know.
Maybe.
You never know.
Maybe.
So, there you go.
So, thinking about us as followers of Jesus, we use words that are sometimes difficult to understand.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes in the church, it's easy to church language, Christianese, jump in on something. So, on Sunday we use this word abide. What does it look like to abide?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't spend a lot of time de-churchifying that word on Sunday. And that's okay. We don't always have to do that. Yeah. But there's clearly, we don't want to use words that you use this really complicated word and a simple word would be, better. The one I mention all the time is sanctification. That's a really big Bible word. But it really just means becoming more like Jesus. That we can grasp. So abiding, the way I like to think about it is staying with in what you do. So almost this idea, mentally you can think in your picture, if you were out taking a walk with your kids, right? And you know that you're in a busy area or you're in the woods or whatever, and so you're asking your kid to hold your hand.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost that sort of mental picture. As I walk through life, Jesus, I'm holding his hand. And again, for some people I can't relate to that. Yeah. But it's sticking with, never losing contact with. And that was part of the John 15 analogy, that the branches are connected to the vine. And Jesus is the vine. Jesus is the source of life. And so when he talks about abiding, he means staying connected. So another way that I just like to think about it is hey, as I'm walking this journey in life, I'm there and I can hold hands with Jesus. He's guiding me. He's leading me. And I can trust him in that. So what Jesus was trying to say very clearly is if you don't abide with me, if you don't walk in that way with me, the life that I've called you to live and the life that is possible for you to live and the life to the full, it can't be lived any other way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So what do you think is the most difficult aspect or the most difficult thing or challenging thing about abiding in our world?
Well, I think, one, there's a lot of competition that the world brings up that says this is what will bring you life to the full. Whether it is something like, if I just have this blank, and some people fill in that blank with a relationship, some people fill it with a job title, some people fill it with an economic goal, or just some other goal that they've always had. If this happens, then I'll have this.
Yeah.
If this is not Jesus, whatever that is other thing that's promised will never fulfill. So I think that's the number one thing, that we have a lot of other voices trying to tell us that. The other thing is that even in my analogy that we were talking about in holding hands, that analogy breaks down because we don't physically see Jesus with us. He is in us, but not with us. And so because of the fact, and we've talked about this, I believe, certainly on this time together. If not, I know, a little plug, the Faith Forward podcast that comes out on Sunday with John Ackerman and I having discussions. I know we've talked about it on there, that one of those challenges is to consistently remind yourself that the Spirit of God is in us. Yeah. And so I think that's the other, because I don't know about you, I can get really busy my day. Now, if my wife or my kid is right here in front of me, I can't get so busy that I forget they're there. Yeah. But when it comes to Jesus, it's really interesting that happens. And so what I need to do is create rhythms and moments and times in my life that will bring that to the forefront of my mind when I don't have it naturally in the forefront of my mind.
Yeah. So mentioning that, what do you think is one thing that we could do? So it's Wednesday, June 9th, 2021. Who knows when somebody might be listening to this, because the internet's internal, and so maybe it's 2023 and somebody's watching this down the road. But
then I am past 15 at that point. Yes.
So, but today, whenever you're watching this today, what is one thing you think we could do to abide better? Okay,
so I'm going to take that two ways. Okay. One thing we can do to help us to remember to abide better, and then one thing to actually abide better. So the first one is create rhythms and places in your life, whatever it may be, to remind you, right? Whether that is, at one point, in our bathroom, we had just this little cover-up my wife uses, or concealer, I'm not sure what the technical term is, that she drew a cross on the bathroom mirror. And that really grabbed my attention for a while. And then it just becomes background, right? So what you do now may not what works later on. So I know you're a big Apple person and your phone's beeping and that sort of stuff from time to time. Maybe you set a reminder on your Apple Watch, if you have one, to buzz, to remind you, hey, abide. So I think we need to set up ways to help remind us, number one. Number two, I mentioned this a bit in the sermon. I think the number one thing that keeps us from abiding is when we do abide and we're told to do something we don't obey. Right? And so if I'm willingly not obeying, I'm less desiring to actually abide. If my kid is not doing what I asked them to do, they're not coming up and holding my hand and go, Dad, let's take for a walk, right? Yeah. They're at an age they're not doing that much anyway. But nonetheless, part of that is really about that. But here's the thing. As I obey and I watch God do what he promises to do, I want to abide more. It's really interesting, right? So if I don't obey, I don't want to abide. Yeah. But the more that I obey out of that abiding, as God directs me and leads me to do hard things. Here's a really hard thing that I've been working on that I think a lot of us can maybe consider. James is really good about saying this, right? Being quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger, right? And right now, if you're watching this and it's on some form of social media, if you look at the rest of your social media feed, you might want to ask yourself, am I obeying that? Or are other people obeying that? Because there's some really clear things that God asks us to do. And then as we do them and we see the life to the full that he promises begin to show up, I'm much more willing and wanting to go back and abide and remember that. So those are the two things that I think of when you ask that.
Cool. So we wrapped up the series on Sunday. We're starting something new this coming weekend. What do we have to look forward to this weekend?
2-week series.
2 weeks?
2 weeks, right? Okay. And it's just called Becoming. And so I'm tackling this reality that when we... 2 Corinthians 2 Corinthians tells us that when we become believers, we become alive in Christ. We become a new creature. But just because we are something doesn't mean we've caught up to the full reality of that. So I'm using an illustration, a little heads up for Sunday, about not long after I was married, someone came up to me and said, hey, would you like to do blah, 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 blah? And of course, because I'd spent 29 years of my life single,
You went, sure.
I immediately went, sure, absolutely I would. And that person says, well, don't you think you should check with your wife before you agree? And I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should. I'm married. I mean, I had a ring on.
Right.
The point was my status had changed, but my mind, my emotion, my will hadn't caught up to my status change.
Yeah.
And Scripture is about this idea of conforming us, right? We are children of God, but our minds, our emotions, our will, it's in a process of becoming more like that. And so we're going to do for 2 weeks. One, we're going to talk about these things that we have to just absolutely understand. These are truths that we have to accept. And then when we accept these truths, this is how we live out of those truths. And I just feel like there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now that we should pause and take 2 weeks about that. Especially, this is the big thing I don't want us to miss. I know we talk a lot about COVID, and it's hopefully getting near the end or whatever it may be. But this is really, really, really what burdens me. That we'll have gone through the 16, 17, how many ever more months it goes to be, this difficult, challenging thing, and we don't learn the lessons that Jesus wants us to learn in these moments.
Yeah.
And he's using these moments, to good and to difficulty, to make us more like him, to become what he wants us to be.
Yeah.
So that's the 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I've noticed a little bit of a sidebar, at least in our community. It feels like as people begin to come, we're still dealing with cicadas here in Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
So
Out
if you're-
with the cicadas.
Yeah, but as people begin to, kind of like the cicadas came out, and people are kind of beginning to come out a little bit more. Life seems to be picking up a little bit more. As you were saying that, I was thinking, have we learned the slow down lesson that we should have learned during COVID? Because a lot of us were forced to slow down, but now life's beginning to pick up again, and have we learned that lesson?
Yeah, so there are 3 that I'm going to get recognitions that I really kind of want people to understand.
And I've not looked at your message,
No,
so I'm not digging.
it's good. No, here's
If I hit something, it's sheer accident.
No, here's the 3 we're going to hit. Number 1, insufficiency is actually, or rather, self-sufficiency is actually insufficiency.
Okay.
Helplessness is actually helpful. And hold on for the 3rd. I'll tell you on Saturday.
Okay, very good. So we'll have that to look forward to this coming Sunday and the next Sunday after that. So 2 weeks we'll be doing the Becoming series, and we'll be back here to talk about it. We're going to do this through the Becoming series, and then we're going to kind of take a break for the summer and go from there. So,
That's right.
So we hope that wherever you're at, wherever you're watching this from, you have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we will see you here in the building or online Sunday